everybody, and welcome to Planet U. So as of right now, our most popular video on our channel is the one right here behind me, why Tim Hortons has gone downhill. As you can tell, here in Canada, we are like big into our Tim Hortons. And if you're from America or otherwise, now you know how much Canadians are obsessed with this particular place. So we got a lot of comments about why people think that it's going downhill, and we wanted to do a follow-up video today addressing the comments from those people. So let's dive right in right now and go deeper down the rabbit hole that is Tim Hortons. Okay, so our first comment comes from Mike Ripluck. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. So he says the biggest issue is they are importing foreign workers from India and refusing to hire Canadians. Okay, so we received a lot of different variations of comments regarding this particular issue. A lot of them were kind of nasty, to be honest, but I don't believe that this is actually just a problem of Tim Hortons. It's very easy to sort of blame Tim Hortons because that's kind of like just a microcosm of what's going on actually in Canada. And I think the larger issue there is that here in Canada, we are bringing in temporary foreign workers. Our government is bringing them in. So a lot of places, they're hiring people from overseas who are going to be paid cheaper rather than hiring Canadians. So that is actually a huge government issue, and you see that at lots of different jobs. I just want to say it's not necessarily the fault of the people that are working there either, because, they're just like everyone else trying to get a better opportunity for themselves. They've come over here looking for a better opportunity. So it's kind of like you don't necessarily need to be blaming those people specifically. And I don't think that people should be blaming Tim Hortons either, because Tim Hortons is just one place that is doing that. Mind you, they are doing that. So I can see why the actual business would suffer because of that, because a lot of those people are just sort of trying to adapt to living here. So therefore, it does provide a lesser service because there's a language barrier, they're maybe not as well trained and stuff like that. But I just want to say that it's not necessarily Tim Hortons' fault, because this is being implemented everywhere and it's more of a government issue, which I think, both sides of the government are now starting to look at maybe correcting this issue. And so another upsetting thing about, some of the comments we're reading is like, it's not necessarily a race thing. It's more so because there are lots of immigrants that come over here legally and they've been here for, years and years and years. It's not necessarily a race thing that people should be upset about. It's more so this like foreign temporary worker policy that's happening in Canada right now. There's a big difference between an immigrant and a temporary foreign worker. So our next comment comes from Kenny Ronald, 1886. He says, support your local coffee house, don't drink the corporate crap. This is one of those comments where I would have to say I couldn't agree more. We're always on this channel trying to encourage people to support local. Money that's going into your community, from the community, and circling back around to help the community, like that's always a positive thing. So I would have to agree with this comment. I think, there's so many huge corporations out there that really don't give a crap about most people. And the small businesses are the ones that you want to support, because there are people that are like your next door neighbor just trying to make a living for themselves. And anywhere you can, I would say it's good to support local. And also if you're, thinking about the money aspect, because Tim Hortons is pretty cheap, I would say honestly, like it's probably the cheapest just to make it at home. It's a few extra steps in the morning. There's tons of hot thermoses that people make nowadays that you can just grab and take to work. So maybe just get like a really good coffee blend that you love and have it at home. And therefore you'd be probably saving a ton of money that way. Okay, this comment is from T Bliss Melodies. Okay, he or she says, Ron Joyce, the founder of Tim Hortons, was a dear friend of mine. He told me he would never eat food from Tim Hortons since the acquisition happened. He said he would rather starve than eat food from Tim Hortons, and that was the founder. That says it all right there. If the founder is saying that, then obviously the quality has gone majorly downhill. Next comment comes from Ryan MacArthur, 1299. Tim Hortons is not a Canadian business anymore. It is owned by the restaurant brand now Oh, it's called the restaurant brand. Now, they own Burger King along with a lot of other U.S. brands. This is a U.S.-owned company that prioritizes profit and lack of concerns for employees. Okay, so we actually just want to clarify that we did say in the video, I believe, that Burger King owned Tim Hortons, but yes, that person is correct. It's actually owned by Restaurant Brand, that's what it's called, and that's what the corporation's called, and they also own Burger King. So basically, the point is no, this is no longer a Canadian-owned company. This is an international company that doesn't really care about, you know, what Canadians think about Tim Hortons anymore. They're on a much bigger scale now, and so therefore they're just trying to pump out the product. And what was once a loved Canadian brand for many specific reasons, loved by Canadians, is no longer owned by a Canadian company. So we have John Bolt 665. He says, about 10 years ago, I realized I was wasting over $700 a year buying morning coffee every day, and since I have probably saved $8,000. So I guess he stopped going there. What's his point? Yeah, so this is why making coffee at home is actually key to saving your money. You can actually buy a single serve coffee maker. Like if you don't want to get the full espresso machine and everything at home, you can buy a single serve coffee maker for like 25 to 30 bucks. So just think about how much money you could save just by making your coffee at home in the morning, throwing it into a thermos, and there you have it. Like, even if you do buy the odd Tim Hortons coffee here or there as a treat, if you're not making a habit of this every day and you're making it at home, just as this gentleman said here, John, I believe his name was, you can save a ton of money. $8,000, like you can go on a trip for that much. So it's well worth looking into. Okay, Jeff Taylor 844. He says, the two locations near me are always absolutely filthy. The floors and especially the tabletops are covered in spilled drinks, dried food, and empty food packaging. Also, the portion sizes are extremely small. So this is another major point that we didn't actually cover in the video, but Tim Hortons actually used to be known as like this kind of like nice, quiet coffee shop in the morning that people used to go and sit. Like, I'm from a small town, so I know a lot of like the townspeople would like come and just like, you know, regulars would come and gather there every morning, have their coffee, chit chat with each other. This is no longer an environment that like exists anymore in Tim Hortons. It's become so overrun with people. And I don't know if it's like being understaffed or like the employees just don't care or something, but the environment always looks filthy. And it makes you not want to sit in there at all. I'm like especially a stickler when it comes to like public washrooms and stuff. I always say if you go into a public washroom and it's filthy, you probably shouldn't be eating there because like what does it look like in the back where they're like making your food? In terms of the size quantity, you know, unfortunately it's not just Tim Hortons that's doing this. Definitely you do notice it there that things have gotten smaller. You know, a lot of places are trying to cut corners nowadays, especially after the pandemic. And shrinkification is actually like a real thing everywhere you go. Even at the grocery store now, I'm noticing like smaller packages of meat. Like, you know, it's very odd because they're still charging the same prices for things. But, you know, especially here in Canada, our economy is not doing well at all. So I feel like a lot of places are trying to cut corners. So you definitely notice that at Tim Hortons. But you're starting to notice it everywhere too. Masaharu Morimoto, I hope I said that right, 4761. Okay, they say, I never go, but the other day I went in for a donut and they wanted $1.75 for a single plain donut. I walked out. Yeah, so I mean, most people would say like $1.75, like that's not that much for a donut. But when you consider all the factors like the shrinkification factor, like the food's smaller now, the quality factor, like it's not even like worth $1.75. You know, the range of like choices at Tim Hortons used to be a lot more. There used to be a lot more different kinds of donut flavors. Now that they started introducing all these different meals and stuff like that, like you only have a select amount of donuts to choose from, and like they're not even good. You go to a place like Krispy Kreme Donuts and they have like 20 different flavors. I can see why it would be discouraging to spend $1.75 on a donut at a place like Tim Hortons. Okay, our next comment comes from MJ Beckbeck. Growing up, my father used to make Tim Hortons uniforms. One of their things they used to have so much pride in was everything is Canadian made, right down to the thread for the uniforms, supported Canadian workers, etc. But now they sold out and made cheap uniforms offshore. Also, I can confirm that all the donuts come in frozen and just get heated up in the oven. Tim Hortons proudly started Canadian but sold out sadly. My answer to this is 100%. Everything that this person is saying is accurate. As we said, they're now an international company and they don't really care about the, Canadian consumer anymore. And that's the bottom line. Next comment comes from I don't know how to say this. Okay, next comment comes from WNX1077. Rest in peace to all the small town bakeries that Tim Hortons ran out of business and then stopped baking anything in-house. I love this comment because it's a viewpoint that is so true. Like, Tim Hortons actually started out as the villain because even though they were, supplying you with like quality donuts and stuff like that at the time, they were still a company, a big company. So they were running out all the mom and pop donut shops and bakeries and stuff like that. It's kind of like a Blockbuster thing in a sense, like people have nostalgia for Blockbuster and stuff like that, but it's another example of a company coming in and like running out all this smaller video stores that it did exist at one time. So unfortunately, they came in and they ran out all the smaller businesses, but then they dropped their quality. So I say to that, like, if Tim Hortons goes downhill, it might be a good thing because then they can crash and burn and all the mom and pop stores can hopefully rise up again. The next comment comes from Between the Pines 4000. I worked at Tim Hortons in high school in 2003. I was there during the transition from bakers and fresh donuts to the air fryer frozen donuts. I went from being excited on weekend morning shifts to grab a fresh donut and coffee before my shift to meh, just a coffee. We also took pride in our store. It was clean, busy, service was number one, and the owners were present on weekdays. You never would hear that now. That same store is an absolute disaster now, in just about every way. I refuse to go there now, and actually Tim Hortons in general. Sad. Common theme in Canada now. Even our cities and larger towns are awful. So my answer to that is like, it's a perfect comment to end this whole thing on. And I couldn't agree more. Just hear what that person said. And that is the bottom line. So thank you for commenting because we've received so many, like hundreds of comments. And obviously people are really riled up about this Tim Hortons issue. Especially Canadians. The American people who are commenting on there are probably laughing at us going, why are these people so obsessed with this donut shop? But no, it's like a huge Canadian staple for us. And it's sad to see something go so downhill over time. And it's something that people would rely on for, a day-to-day thing. So to see it go downhill is like you're kind of ripping away like a piece of our, Canadian livelihood or something. So thank you so much for commenting. We actually really enjoyed reading all the comments. We agreed with a lot of them. A lot of them were pretty heated as well, but we know obviously they're heated for a reason. Because you guys stand behind Tim Hortons, or you did. So the times are changing, unfortunately, and we're watching it all happen here. So thanks for joining us on Planet U. Please subscribe, hit the notifications bell. We'll see you next time. Please keep commenting.